Right. Well, welcome. Oh, man. Welcome to the end of the week. Hallelujah. We got a sound effect for that. It is Friday. Hit it, man. Friday. Yes, indeed. We're going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon, and pushing the buttons so ably on the board would be the JP. Hey, man. How you?
I'm good. Man, I wish we had like stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, it's a little dry.
It's like a dry news day.
You know, we'd have to search it out, I guess.
Yeah, we're looking for topics. I may want to fill it in.
Yeah, you can imagine where the news is going today. But yeah, we got plenty on tap to talk about. Speaking of which, let me just tell you what we got. So we got a great show lined up for you. There's plenty to talk about right now with what's going on in the Middle East. I'll cover that momentarily. Do know this. It is Friday. So on Friday, we always take a minute to step aside from normal news and normal politics and normal culture war stuff. And we talk about sports with JP. So JP on sports is coming up halfway through hour number 2. Stand by for that. And then we are going to talk about some things that are happening here and around and amongst us. Going to cook up a batch of home fries in conjunction with a phone call with our friend Stephanie Smith from the Alabama Policy Institute. So yeah, we'll cover down on some home fries with her. And then I still got the triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, you can imagine what the news is. War in the Middle East. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to talk about this in more detail, but this is not a new war. This is an escalation in the existing war, but we are definitely seeing war in the Middle East. It is pretty much wall-to-wall coverage right now on that, and we are going to dissect it and give you everything you need to know as you walk into the weekend. Yep, war in the Middle East, number 1, triple dipper. Number 2, assuming I get to it, I'm calling it the big, beautiful fixes. I'm loving the fact that the Trump administration sees things that were broken under Biden and pivots, like noticeably pivots, and directs resources to actually fix them, like changing executive orders, like removing financing, like doing things necessary to balance budgetary issues. We're going to talk about big, beautiful fixes coming up as number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then in conjunction with that conversation we're having with Stephanie Smith from the Alabama Policy Institute, number 3 on the Triple Dipper, home fries. We'll take a look around what's happening in and around and amongst us here in Alabama, Tennessee, the Southeast, and we will cover down on things that matter in our own backyard, and I call it home fries. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into the Rightside Way opening monologue. I will remind you guys that Stan McDonald, attorney at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. Stan McDonald is a longtime Rightside ruffian, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. He is, in fact, the daily sponsor of your Rightside Way monologue, and I'll tell you more about Stan in just a minute. Okay, so let me just start off by saying the obvious. War drums are pounding again. They are. I've been on the air now for 4 years. And in that 4 years, I have commented multiple times on armed conflict around the world. I mean, just since Rightside Radio went live in the summer of 2021, I have provided commentary on the debacle pullout from Afghanistan, the onset and continuation of the war in Ukraine, the conflicts in Syria, the October 7th massacres in Israel, followed by wars against Hamas and Hezbollah, and the U.S. bombing of the Houthi rebels, and the Iranians launching major missile strikes last year against Israel. And in the last 24 hours, we've now seen the conflict with Iran take on a new and devastating escalation as Israel began a bombing campaign to destroy the nuclear capabilities of Iran. And yeah, this is a really huge, hairy deal. It is. This is not some faraway conflict with people that we don't identify with. This is not some effort by some tin pot dictator to seize a little turf. This is a full-on war in the most unstable region of unstable regions. So let me just tell you a few things to be aware of, things for you to know and log away as part of your future discussions, because I know this audience, you guys are going to be talking about this with your friends and family and associates at work. So first of all, I will say this, I'm not for war. I'm not at all for war, but I do understand it. Anybody who's ever served in war will tell you it should be the last resort, but the first discussion. By that, I mean, last resort, first discussion, that appeasement and isolationism, those are what breeds conflict. You have to always be able to win friends and kill enemies all at the same time, and your enemies should know that. They know that, and they are more likely to be deterred. Secondly, you got to keep in mind that Israel did not launch a war last night. They didn't launch a war. They are working to end one. It is Israel that has now endured decades of attrition of their own people from the hands of the Iranian proxies like Hezbollah to their north and Hamas to their east and west, funded by Iran. It was Hamas who committed the atrocities of October 7th, 2023, that had a higher per capita impact on the people of Israel than 9/11 did on the U.S. And it was Iran that launched missile strikes against Israel twice last year, twice, in April and October of 2024. Massive drone and ballistic missile barrages rained their way towards Israel, nation on nation. It is also Iran that has screamed death to Israel and death to America for decades. And it is Iran, with all that history, who has the international community agrees was within weeks of achieving nuclear weapons capability, something that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia recently said would require a Middle Eastern arms race, as Saudi Arabia would not be able to sit still and let Iran become the sole nuclear Middle Eastern power. It would have a complete shift in the overall climate of international relations in the Middle East. And we should not believe for a second, by the way, that any additional appeasement or efforts for containment would have ever deterred Iran from going nuclear. Only a fool would ever believe that. So here we are. And bombs are going off in Iran. So what does this mean? What should we expect? How does it impact us? Well, Secretary Rubio issued a statement last night saying the U.S. is not participating, but we are also not stopping it, which means that Iran, who likes to claim that Israel is a puppet of the U.S., will still blame the U.S. They will. They already are. So we've evacuated our troops. But we've also used all sorts of intelligence that was already there. Think back. We've been pulling troops out of Syria for months. We've been bombing the Houthis to restore freedom of passage for shipping. We've been working to firmly reestablish solid relations with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. Since Trump was elected, the efforts at bridging gaps and building relations and currying favor with other Middle Eastern nations has been a top-ranked foreign policy effort. They've known this day was coming, and we knew we'd needed a better posture than the one that had been left behind for us by the Biden team. We've also assisted Israel in its efforts to degrade the proxy fighters of Hamas and Hezbollah. This was necessary in order to keep Iran off balance and make them unable to launch a multi-pronged offensive from different places around Israel, and gives Israel some geographic buffer, if you will, what the military calls a standoff capability. Israel has also, by the way, in the last 12 hours, taken out key Iranian generals, and after last year's missile strikes, Israel has also severely crippled Iran's air defenses. So, you may be asking, well, why didn't Israel just wait a little bit longer? I mean, isn't there a negotiation ongoing right now? Well, yeah, there is. Aren't we trying to get Iran to walk away from nukes? Yes, but those talks have proven fruitless. And Iran was trying to get its air defense back online. And what we know now was that Iran had been given 60 days to negotiate, and they failed to do so. Last night was day 61. So Iran also, by the way, just announced that it just fielded a new and larger scale ballistic missile that is twice the payload capability of their previous missiles. And the intelligence suggests that Iran may have achieved nuclear capability with up to 9 or more warheads within weeks. And waiting would have allowed Iran then to stiff arm the world while it ran for the nuclear goal line. There's an old axiom that dates back to the 4th century in Rome. Sive pacem para bellum. You hear it? Sive pacem para bellum. It means if you want peace, you prepare for war. That's not a warmongering, overly hawkish view seeking a call to arms. It's not. It's a view of history. It's the knowledge that one cannot enter into a playground filled with bullies and come out okay unless the bullies know that you're carrying a big stick. History is replete with obvious parallels to where we are right now. Let's hope that history doesn't repeat itself on some of those, because history does tell the tale. And I don't ever want to be that guy who just spouts off with half-cocked assertions and misplaced fact patterns. So I sat down when I was preparing this monologue and I thought, you know what, I better review the sequence of events that led up to the onset of 2 of the most epic wars in the history of the world. And I wasn't too far off the mark. As I read over the historical analyses of what kicked off World War I and World War II, I was struck by how much I could see in those events that mirrored or at least had a sense of similarity to where we have been, with events that we're watching unfold right now. Like this. How about if I was to say to you a quote, feckless Western leadership emboldened the militaristic socialist leader of the re-emerging power. What would that be? Would you think I was talking about the lead up to World War II? Or would you think about the way the Biden administration was handling Iran? Exactly. That statement fits both. You could apply that phrase equally to then and now. How about this one? Quote, Western allies pledged their support to one another in a posturing manner that nonetheless failed to stem the tide of rising tides of war. Would that be the lead up to World War I? Or is that our situation now as what happened during the Biden era leading up to the Trump era? History dictates that rarely has broad conflict in either Europe or the Middle East ever remained a non-issue for the North American continent. The Atlantic Ocean is not a real strong barrier, sometimes it seems, when those regions fully explode. It always seems to follow certain patterns: cross-border rivalries, ethnic identities that transcend borders, aggressive posturing by a domineering figure, and then an incident occurs that lights the short fuse on the powder keg. Always coupled, it seems, by some measure of feckless leadership leading up to that point that thought it could reason with the tyrant, only to find out that tyrants cannot be trusted because deceitfulness is in the very nature of tyrants. The lead up to World War II was pretty equally ominously familiar. As Hitler determined to cause Germany to reemerge from the ashes of its downfall in World War I, the rest of Europe stood idly by, just hoping they wouldn't be drawn in. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, he championed a policy of appeasement. He literally worked to find ways possible to sort of make Hitler happy, to mitigate his concerns. And yet Europe watched while Hitler grew his war machine and annexed Austria, much like Putin has annexed Crimea, and much like you see things battling out right now with proxy states being funded by Iran. So, as Iran uses Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, Hitler's new war machine first fought its proxy war in the Spanish Civil War. If you're a history buff, you'll know that. Went and tested out all of its weapon systems, sort of put the world on notice. This is the kind of people we are. The Spanish Civil War. Many of their new weapon systems were in fact tested, and the puppet governments were propped up, and Europe stood by. And you got to wonder, is that what happens when half of Lebanon is controlled by Hezbollah? When all of the Gaza Strip is controlled by Hamas? Is that what it means when the Houthis control whole swaths of Yemen? You've all heard that old axiom, and I told you about it a moment ago, that we are doomed to repeat our history. And that whole thing about civi pacem parabellum, if you want peace, prepare for war, it's real. Everything I just described to you a few minutes ago, you could simply have the names changed and you could apply those quotes to the current events that are unfolding before our very eyes. A reemerging world power, Iran. Or was it Germany? Let's see. Hungry for the glory days. Well, that would be Iran. That could have been Germany. Seeking to flex their muscles under the leadership of a ruthless dictator. Well, that could be Ayatollahs, or that could be Hitler. Seeking to, I don't know, have a dictator who feels no shame in declaring the death of neighboring countries. Death to Israel, death to America. An feckless leadership who watched and hoped and wrung their bony hands with the hope that this time a policy of appeasement might actually work. So look, again, I don't want my family and friends who are currently serving in the military to start serving another Middle Eastern conflict. I don't at all. And I will tell you this with all measure and sincerity, we better take this seriously. We better not draw silly red lines in the sand. We better not get into such a reclusive and isolationist mindset, though, that we also forget to ensure that our best defense is indeed the capability of force projection in an overwhelming capacity. Civi pacem parabellum. If you want peace, you prepare for war. If your enemies tell you they want you dead, you ought to believe them. If they don't, watch to see if they follow through on it. That's not a warmongering, overly hawkish view. Again, it's not. It's a pragmatic view of history. And history is replete with some obvious parallels to where we are right now. Let's hope that history does not repeat itself. Let's hope and pray that we can see this shut down very quickly. Civi pacem parabellum. That's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, yeah, and listen, I'll be honest with you. I got no love for Iran whatsoever. I mean, they were killing American soldiers when I was in Baghdad in 2004 by training the militia and giving them all kinds of new ways to set IEDs. It's real. Iran's been a bad actor on the world stage. But I'm hoping that what's happening is a quick strike that will preempt the ability for there to be a broader war. Let's get it over with. Get it done. Get it behind us. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. So text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it. Tell us your stuff. Love to hear from you. I want to keep your input going on the show. Thank you very much. I got to tell you about Stan McDonald, though. Stan McDonald. Partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And yeah, Stan is the kind of guy, he can represent you quite well legally, but I got to tell you, he's also been in the mix, in the trenches as a warrior for policies and politics that, right side ruffians really care about for decades. So yeah, Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in just any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So I'm going to tell you how to get in touch with him because you might need a lawyer in North Alabama. And here's his number. You ready? Stan McDonald, law firm is Wilmer and Lee, and the phone number is 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. No representation made. The quality legal service reforms made. The quality legal service one of the lawyers. Scared you, didn't I? Scared you.
You didn't even take a breath beforehand.
I blew out all the oxygen that I had just trying to finish up.
I'm
not even sure what I said.
Well, I'd say that's like an 8-8 right there. You kind of fudged it a little. You didn't take the proper breath.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by the lawyers. And I got to tell you, that's a crock of crap because I wouldn't advertise a bad lawyer. What do you think of that? How you like me now?
I think you're going to upset lawyers by saying that. The part at the end.
Oops. Lawyers. Who needs them? Lawyers.
Except Stan McDonald.
And me.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to be taking a break here momentarily. I got a bunch of text messages already streaming in. We got plenty to talk about because, yeah, y'all, it's a target-rich environment for news. It's like fluid right now. So stand by for that. We'll talk about war in the Middle East when we get back, along with your input. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border to what we get to call once again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And by the way, that's just the radio audience. Then there's all y'all on the online, going in everywhere in the big wide world, going to the World Wide Web and checking us out on YouTube, our website, on Facebook, on Rumble, on Twitter, all of it. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. I got to get some text messages. I got to tell you too, the news is like moving almost. It's like we're going to be talking in real time a lot on this Israel and Iran thing. One headline right now breaking as we speak on Fox News says the U.S. is assisting Israel in shooting down Iran's missiles. Now, I expected that. We did that last year. Even during the Biden administration, we did that. All that is a defensive measure. It's not an offensive measure. And we already have, President Trump has increased our capabilities over there with THAAD missile defense and Patriot batteries to augment the Iron Dome. So I'm not a bit surprised to find out that, because I think we already have forces in the area who were there with the deployed arrays of air defenses. So yeah, we probably are. And then we've also got, I'm not going to be a bit surprised to find out, because it's about I want to say it's a huge expanse. It's like I heard somebody say this morning that a missile going from Iran to hit, say, Tel Aviv is like launching a missile in New York to hit Los Angeles. It's that far apart. You've got Iraq and Syria in between. And so there's a huge expanse of ground. So there's plenty of time there for them to be detected and hopefully taken out. And I believe that we are launching also from Carrier Strike Group in the Gulf, which also gives us some over-the-horizon capability to take out those missiles. A lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff. We'll be moving as fast as we can on it. In fact, I see Marshall from Dubai texted in. He says the news cycle is moving so fast in the past 24 hours, I had to adjust my memes. He said, enjoy, my friend. Happy birthday to the Army and the greatest president of all time. And he sends a meme. What's Ahmed the dead terrorist? You seen him?
I have, yeah.
Ahmed the dead terrorist is flying a flying carpet, being shot down by Snoopy with an Israeli flag on his doghouse. That's hilarious. Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate you. Be safe over there. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, just wondering if this is maybe the start of World War III with Russia and Ukraine, China looking to take Taiwan. I wonder who will come to the aid of Iran, since China, Russia, and North Korea all have ties. Will there be a new NATO-type alliance for the Middle East? One would hope not. So to be honest with you, now what you're saying is absolutely what I would fear, that more so were the Biden administration still in place. That was actually one of my deep concerns last year and the year before that, was that we were looking at a 2 to 3 front potential war. If all of these folks saw feckless Joe Biden incapable of making decisions, can you imagine what they would do? They would be saying, okay, they're distracted. Quick, they're distracted by the Iran-Israel thing. Now we want to take this. Now we're going to launch that. And yes, I could see suddenly Russia bowing up in dealing with it. Why do you think Trump, by the way, Trump is not just negotiating peace because he just wants peace in Ukraine. It's bigger than that. He's negotiating peace to keep us out of it. He's negotiating peace to try and remove one more distraction from the world stage, knowing full well there's a lot of hotspots. So what you're watching right now with the peace negotiations in Ukraine and Russia, think of that as being absolutely in the U.S. national interest to negotiate that peace. We don't want that to broaden. We don't want NATO sucked in. We don't want to deal with whether we would have to respond to Article 5 of the NATO Convention because another NATO country was struck. We don't want to deal with that. And we also don't want to see it expand any further anyway, because peace is in the world's best interest. But now we've also got the Iran-Israel thing, which was spiking up last year. And the end result of that is that we've got a full-on distraction going in the Middle East. We don't need, oh, by the way, China blowing up. So if you'll notice, take the totality of the circumstances. What have you heard from Trump in recent days? He had a great phone call, he said, with Premier Xi from China, working out a trade negotiation. Do not think for a second that that trade negotiation didn't also address national security issues. They didn't just talk about tariffs. They didn't just talk about goods and the traversing of ports. They didn't. I guarantee you. They also said, and oh, by the way, this goes out the window if something happens to Taiwan. So as Trump is negotiating trade deals, what he's also doing is establishing relationships that give him the ability to then pick up the phone. And I want you to remember, it was just 2 years ago in the Middle East when Saudi Arabia actually would not take Joe Biden's phone call. Do you remember that? Saudi Arabia would not even take Joe Biden's phone call. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Abdullah just said in an interview about 2 months ago, that if Iran got nuclear weapons, that Saudi Arabia would feel obligated to have to pursue nuclear weapons themselves because they could not sit by and let Iran become the nuclear power of the Middle East. Why does Saudi Arabia care? They're all Islamic. No, gosh, no, they're not. No. The Iranians don't consider themselves Middle Eastern. They consider themselves Persians. And the Iranians are Shia Muslims. And the Sunni Muslims of Saudi Arabia have an entirely different mindset and worldview. They do. They may have some similarities and they may come from a region, but they are worlds apart in terms of what they care about and the way they conduct business. So that being said, Iran has been a pariah on the world stage since Jimmy Carter. And what we're watching right now is hopefully something that's going to further disable their ability to basically foment trouble on the world stage. Darlene from Gadsden checking in. Hey, Darlene, so good to hear from you. Said, didn't take any of the COVID shots. Okay. This is a text that I think she meant for somebody else. Darlene, I think you're texting somebody, maybe even my sweet Charlene. So she's a friend from way back who just moved out of state. David at Bucky says, Phil, in response to your emergency poll, we don't have a choice. We're already involved. While we may not have boots on the ground, the U.S. will do it all it can to ensure Israel has what it needs to succeed in its quest for survival. I agree with that. I think we are. What he's referring to, by the way, is our newsletter's out. Every day we have an email blast. The newsletter, it's called the Rightside Report. If you want it, by the way, if you don't already get it, by the way, if you thought you signed up for it and you don't see it, check your spam box just to make sure. But you can always, this same number, 833-687-4448, just text the word newsletter, one word, newsletter. You'll get an automatic prompt that allows you to sign up for it. We have thousands of people that get our daily Rightside Report. In today's Rightside Report, David at Bucky's points out, Butters set up a poll. And the poll is, should the United States get involved? David at Bucky's points out, technically we already are. Chip from Muscle Shoals says, Phil, saw this meme while watching Johnny B. GunTube last night and immediately thought of you. This is good advice for I've seen that one. I like that one. I love that one. Shows a picture of an Army Ranger tab. Has a little thing there and it says, if you see any National Guard soldiers, this is out in Los Angeles, wearing this patch, it means they have a job in the Army that's basically a park ranger. They have very little training. They can be soft targets. Yeah, go poke that bear. Good luck with you. Scott from Russellville says, yet another great thought-provoking monologue, Senator. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you. John from Huntsville says, Phil, awesome monologue. Also, did you hear that the miraculous story about how one guy survived a plane crash in India that killed the other 241 passengers on board? Says, by the way, JP, I'm going to leave you a few questions on the YouTube comment section page for your sports segment, and you can choose to answer as many as you like. There you go.
I already see him coming in. Appreciate it.
Ding, 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 ding. Need a little sound effect there whenever John.
It'd be too many.
Yeah. And then Red from Tony, Alabama said, did you see the Santas give the okay for drivers to run over rioters as they surround your car? Yeah, I did. I meant to play it yesterday and I forgot. Epic. And oh, by the way, yes, And oh, by the way, I already would have anyway. Here's the thing. As long as you say that, I would rather get forgiveness than permission. If I'm on the road and a group of angry people is surrounding my vehicle and yelling at me and making a scene, and I don't know what they're there for, but I feel threatened by it, I got a thing called the Castle Doctrine says, you know what? I'm moving right on through this crowd. I don't have to floor it. I can just begin. But guess what? I don't care what you drive, from the little bittiest Prius to a Ford F-350. Bottom line is you weigh more than they do. Just go ahead and let off that brake and tap that accelerator and work your way on through that crowd.
By the way, it's
Good luck with that.
It's only a 20-second clip. I have it if you want to play it at all.
Do we have time right now?
I mean, we're about to go to a break anyways.
It's totally off topic.
It's fine.
But
Somebody
it's
asked about it though, so
play it.
Also have a policy that if you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes in.
I don't know why audio is playing, but I guess we'll go to break and I'll figure out why.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We're taking a break. We're coming right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. And by the way, I got to tell you, so the latest edition, our podcasting is still going crazy. So our latest edition of our podcast of Right Click, which is with Birdman. Birdman, by the way, Birdman was a former competitive professional gamer. There's a lot of money in gaming, I've come to find. But anyway, he does his podcast from the backdrop of high tech and gaming, conservative content at the same time. So if you got somebody who's in that genre, into that kind of stuff, Birdman's latest edition just came out. It's called Right Click, and you can find it at rightsidemedia.org. We just spent the entire morning today filming the next edition of the Just Right podcast. That's our long form podcast. That's the one that we could spend, like deep dive time having meaningful conversations with some of the most interesting people you'll ever meet. And y'all, I'm going to tell you right now, I was going to go ahead and tell you who it is. We had a couple of hours this morning with Mike Durant, the Black Hawk pilot who was shot down and made famous through the book and all that of Black Hawk Down was the name of it. But golly, what a story. And we covered his life. We didn't just cover just the Battle of Mogadishu, but of course the Battle of Mogadishu probably I would took up almost half of what we were doing. But what an incredible conversation, and what a great guy. Just as personable, just as nice as you could possibly hope for, solid as a rock, and a life experience unlike any you may have ever heard before. You're going to want to see this one. It's worth it. Absolutely worth it. So a minute ago we were talking. I'm gonna break the chain here. All right. I'm gonna go off track. I'm gonna chase a rabbit. May I chase a rabbit? Squirrel.
I mean, the texter prompted it, so there you go.
Indeed.
That was his fault.
So I will say this. Ron DeSantis the other day said that in Florida, you know what? If you got a bunch of protesters surrounding your car, you're allowed to go ahead and just do what you got to do to get out of that crowd, even if you have to just use your car to move right on through them. Well, I don't think that means go plow down crowds, but if you're being surrounded, you feel threatened, it's a whole different thing. I will say this before you play the audio. John C. from Madison just texted in. He says, when Ron DeSantis said there'd be no charges against drivers when they ran over protesters a few years ago, I mentioned on Facebook that I would use the protesters like speed bumps. I also said on Facebook that if a mob comes up to me and my wife in my truck, it'll be at least one dead protester from being shot by me, and Facebook turned around and banned me for a month. Reckon why? Castle doctrine, man. All right, you got that audio? All right, this is Ron DeSantis. And who's he interviewing with? Is it Fox? Who's he?
I don't think he's interviewing with anybody. I think he's just making a statement, from his office.
Okay. All right. Well, play it.
Also have a policy that if you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck and let the mob grab you out of your car and drag you through the streets. You have a right to defend yourself in Florida.
Wow. Wow.
And it was actually Rubin he was talking to. Is it Michael Rubin from the Rubin Report?
Yeah. Okay. That's
But that I feel like that doesn't even have to be expressed. It's just like, hey, by the way, if you're held at gunpoint and someone's trying to rob you, you have permission to defend yourself.
Have you been to California lately?
But that's what I'm saying. I think that just illustrates how bad it is over there, that you have to remind people of, hey, you can actually defend yourself, by the way. It's actually a legal thing for you to do.
Which it's a clear indication that we have a 10th Amendment that allows states to have some sovereign right to declare state laws, because you're not going to find that in New York. No. You're not going to find that in Illinois or in California or in Washington State or in Oregon. I guarantee you, you'd be the one at fault. Because, well, they were exercising their free right to speech and you ran over them. No.
I have what was that video? And I'm sorry if we're going too far down this rabbit hole, but
we are chasing a rabbit right now.
What was the video from New York, I believe, where the protesters were blocking the street and keeping the lady from going to work? And the lady got out and goes, I have to pay to feed my kids and you are stopping from going to work. And that guy goes, oh no, you're missing work. It's like, what? I'm sorry, you don't have a job?
Yeah, exactly.
But some people do and actually needed to pay for that was like the most out of touch insane things. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't go to work. I'm sorry.
Well, the man bun gave it away.
Yeah, I mean it tracks, but
it was a man bun.
It's amazing.
Man bun, speaking up. Man bun, who was sitting there with his, on his bike and probably eats vegan and, whatever.
Not
else.
Probably. He definitely eats vegan. Or lab grown meat.
Oh, boy's got vegan written all over him. Okay. Well, listen, we're going to get back on this topic though about what's going on with Iran and Israel. We're going to spend a lot of time unpacking this. We're going to make sure you have all the information. Here's what I really want to see happen. By the way, I'm getting back on track. I'm not chasing the squirrels anymore.
I mean, it's your show. You can chase how many squirrels you want.
That's a good point. Squirrel. So here's the thing. This weekend is going to be incredibly interesting in terms of people who are news hounds, right? If you're watching the news, it's going to be wall-to-wall coverage, and it's going to be updated on a regular basis. You're also going to have conversations at church, in the fast food line, with coworkers. You're going to be talking to friends. You're going to be on social media. Someone's going to say something you're going to want to respond to. Here's a couple of high points that I want you to keep in mind. Again, I said it earlier, but this is not a new war. This is a continuation of a war that Iran started, not Israel. There will be those out there that will try to say the narrative, well, Israel brings this on themselves. Sure, that's what it is. Israel asked for people to bomb them. It was last year that Iran launched massive ballistic missile and drone attacks from nation to nation. Why do I keep saying nation to nation? Because that is a big, hairy deal. So when you're talking to people, point that out. Last year, in April and in October, Iran launched missiles from its own territory as one nation against another. It didn't use a proxy. It wasn't a terror incident. It was a nation shooting at a nation. That is a huge escalation of force. The other piece of this is it was Israel that suffered the October 7th massacres. Who did it? Hamas. Who is Hamas? They're an Iranian proxy. And then as Israel is dealing with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, suddenly they get attacked from their northern border. By who? By Hezbollah. Who's Hezbollah? Another Iranian proxy. And then down south, hundreds of miles away, in a country called Yemen, right there on the Gulf, the Suez, you've got the Houthis launching missiles at ships, to include U.S. Navy warships. Who are the Houthis? Oh, that's right. They're Iranian proxies. So what you're seeing right now, here's the key underlying point that I think you need to have in your quiver when you have these conversations is this is a continuation of a war that Iran started. Israel is trying to put an end to it. We got more. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday, because it is a Friday. We're going to get you all the way to go home time. Stay with us. So I'm in number 1 of the Triple Dipper, War in the Middle East. We're watching the news. I got 2 screens up on the wall right now, CNN and Fox both going. White House officials are saying that Trump and Netanyahu have spoken earlier today. That's ongoing. Fox is reporting that the U.S. is indeed helping Israel shoot down Iranian missiles, which I would have expected. And we are also hearing that over 100 missiles have been launched from Iran towards Israel. I don't know how many have gotten through. JP, can you check on that? See if you can find anything that says, I'm looking at Fox saying that there is a live update. See if you can find out how many Iranian missiles have made it through the phalanx so far. Here's a piece while he's doing that. Fox News has a story came out last night talking about what they've been striking, what they've been hitting. Well, you can imagine. First of all, when Israel had all those missiles fired at them last year, they did strike back to degrade Iranian air defense capabilities. And so the Iranian air defenses were already crippled, and they were trying to rebuild them. So right now, it does appear that Iran largely has no air defense, because one of the first things that happened is Israel struck at the Iranian air defense capabilities and basically I think they have SA-3s. Anyway, they have their ground to air capability has been degraded such that it almost feels like I saw images earlier of, or maybe I heard of it, that Israeli warplanes are actually doing refueling operations in Iranian airspace. That tells me they're operating with impunity right now. But the other piece of this is they're hitting not just military capabilities in terms of taking out their air defenses, they're also destroying nuclear sites, which you would expect. Natanz nuclear facility, which is one of the biggest ones, which is also buried deep in a mountain. We have right now satellite imagery showing that they have been constructing deep underground tunnels. Well, that Natanz has been a major target, as well as what's known as the Fordo fuel enrichment plant. The Fordo plant, by the way, the analysts believe was almost to the point where it could have produced 11 nuclear weapons within the next 30 days. So there's that. So those 2 facilities, Natanz and the Fordo sites, have been hit, along with several others, but they also didn't stop there. Israel struck at generals, basically they're decapitating military leadership, and they struck at and killed a number of Iranian nuclear scientists. So they're taking out the people most capable. What this tells you is they've got massive intelligence capability. They've got people, I guarantee you, they've got deep penetration living inside the communities in Iran right now. The other piece of this, which is so crazy cool, is that Israel had Mossad, that's basically their CIA, had Mossad agents and other special operators that actually had set up remote hidden drone sites in Iran, so they didn't have to worry about launching from all the way from Israel. And these deep penetration commandos got on the ground, infiltrated ahead of time, uncovered or brought out their stash of drones, and began launching drones from inside the country, which gives you like hardly any reaction time. So what that basically means is Operation Rising Lion, they call it, the overall preemptive strike operation, had not just airplane or warplanes launching from Israel proper and flying across other nations' airspace. They were actually inside the country, launching drones and other attacks from in the country. Listen, Israel does not play. What'd you find out, bud?
So I'm seeing about 300 missiles have been launched
from
Iran into Israel, and I'm seeing about 7 have gotten through.
That's today's date?
Yes.
Okay.
And nobody's been injured or from the strikes.
Who's reporting that?
Everybody. I've seen numbers from everybody on there.
I mean, is that like a Reuters or an AP wire or something
I'm on X. I'm on the real social media X.
Oh, you're on the real news. Thank you very much.
But I believe Fox has reported that too. Of the wide consensus I've seen is about 7 of the 300 have gotten through.
Okay. So the Iron Dome is largely doing its job.
As expected, yeah.
Yeah, and isn't that amazing? I mean, it's like shooting a bullet out of the air.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's part of why I wasn't buying into well, Iran's going to strike Israel back. It's like, yeah, and they're going to fail because they suck at this apparently, or Israel's just that good. So yeah, I don't think Iran's going to be able to get much through the Iron Dome.
Well, I hope not. But the question is, how long can what's it take? How long does the Iron Dome, how much ammo do they have is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that we've got Patriot batteries there. We've got our own THAAD missile defense there. And of course, the Iron Dome has proven itself time and time again. I'm watching video right now of Iron Dome just taking out missiles in the air. It's crazy. It's absolutely bananas. What an amazing thing. That's one of the reasons why Trump has watched what's happened here and why he wants to build the Golden Dome over America, because he's seen the effect of what the Israelis have been able to achieve by just literally thwarting efforts on behalf of Iran to try and strike at Israel. If all those missiles got through, it'd be a whole new day. Piece I've got here from 1819 News. Just so you know, and you might well imagine, your U.S. delegation from the state of Alabama is all in. Senator Katie Britt, please join me in praying for Israel. Representative Barry Moore from down south Alabama says America stands with Israel. Please join Heather and I in praying for them tonight. U.S. Representative Gary Palmer, who was on the show yesterday, says please join me in praying for Israel tonight. Robert Adderholt, congressman from the 4th District, he had the most to say. He said Israel has a right to defend itself from those who wish it harm and its extinction. And there is no greater threat to Israel than the prospect of a nuclear-armed Iran. Years of appeasement, he says, under President Biden put the world at risk of nuclear escalation, and please pray for Israel. So your U.S. delegation is in favorable comments also from Kay Ivey and Steve Marshall and other members of the leadership of Alabama. Now, I think it's fair to say that Israel is not just crushing, civilian neighborhoods. All right. They're not out there just flattening community centers and schools. And this is a very surgical strike. Their intelligence is unbelievable. Keep in mind, this is the country that decapitated Hezbollah's leadership by working long and over time to get them to all wear pagers that contained explosives. So as Hezbollah leaders in Lebanon are walking around feeling pretty cocky with their pager on their hip, then one day, all of a sudden, the pager goes off. They all got a call from the same number. Cha-boom. And then didn't you tell me, the walkie-talkies?
Yeah. Well, the Hezbollah was like, okay, we're not using pagers. We're going to use walkie-talkies now. And then the walkie-talkies exploded. One of the most amazing videos was Hezbollah soldiers at a funeral, like a public funeral for one of the Hezbollah soldiers who died from the pagers. And while they're at the funeral, walkie-talkies blew up in their pockets. So it's like the amount of precision, and Mossad is, they obviously have to be because of how many people want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, but they are just next level and that stuff.
Exactly. It's like almost like creepy how good they are.
Yeah. And apparently they had them meeting purposely had them go to a meeting. I don't know if you're going to talk about that in your resources, but apparently they somehow drew all the people they wanted dead to meet urgently at a spot and then blew up that spot to kill them all. So
last night, you mean?
Yeah. So apparently I'm not sure how, but I've seen something about how they somehow lulled all right, we need to have a meeting, everybody convene. And then that's when they blew it up. So I haven't seen specifics on that, but if that's true, then it's another example of their amazing work.
Here's the other thing. They're targeting key people. I mentioned a while ago that they are targeting actual nuclear scientists and military officials. Story here on the Daily Wire. Hossein Salami, who's the commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was killed by an Israeli strike. So they're decapitating leadership. They're degrading capabilities. And you're gonna wind up seeing more and more over the next few days how specific the bomb damage assessment is going to prove that they really were. I don't know that people can truly fathom the depths to which Iran was basically co-opted over time. Just they're getting worn out right now. Let me tell you what. There's several things to know as we wrap up before we go to the next break. There's several things to know. This particular set of strikes, it's doing four things. You ready for this? Disable the Iranian nuclear program. That's primary. Decapitate the Iranian regime by eliminating their top leaders. That's also key. Debilitating their command and control capabilities. So you're watching cell towers go down. You're watching military command and control go down. They're putting them back in the dark ages when it comes to communication, and then also destroying their air defenses I mentioned a moment ago. So you get those 4 Ds: disable the nuclear program, decapitate their leadership, debilitate their command and control, and destroy their Iranian air defenses. And you've got an amazingly effective 24 hours so far. We'll wait and see how it plans out. In the meantime, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. So I got two stories here that I was going to bring to your attention. One of them I pulled off of a website called jns.org, and I forgot what I think it's Joint Navals. Anyway, I forgot what the website is now that I don't have it all in front of me. But I'm saying this is key. Alabama Congressman Mike Rogers. Congressman Rogers, you may recall, is actually the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Very powerful position in D.C., and he's from Alabama. So he is having a House Armed Services Committee meeting recently, and he had General Michael Kurilla there. And Kurilla is the CENTCOM commander. CENTCOM is the Central Command. That is the major combatant command that has purview over the Middle East. And Chairman Rogers asked, if the president directed, is CENTCOM prepared to respond with overwhelming force to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran? General Kurilla responded by saying, I have provided the Secretary of Defense and the President with a wide range of options. Rogers responded, I think that's a yes. And General Kurilla said, yes. So basically what he's saying is, well, and I would expect no less. By the way, it'd be negligence if they didn't have a plan. You may have to dust it off. You may have to go ahead and update it. You may have to go ahead and move some of the patches around on the chart, but still, the bottom line is they're going to have a plan. It's just a given that they'll have a plan. But I think it's also very telling that came out just in the last couple of days. What also came out from Reuters yesterday, 2 days ago, actually, Iran threatens to strike U.S. bases in the region if the military conflicts arise. We have. Charlene and I were talking. The lovely Charlene was keeping up with this too, and she's a news hound, man. But she told me that we have, oh gosh, I want to say over 4,000 troops. Maybe it's more than that, stationed in the Middle East right now. It's got to be more than that. Maybe it's 40,000, but it's a ton. But we got quite a bit of permanent basing there. We've got port capability. We've got forces that are in places like still in Syria they're being pulled out over time, but there's still some there. We got embassies. We've got any number of things. What do you got?
40 to 50,000.
40,000. Okay. I thought that decimal point was in the wrong place. You may recall that in the last 48 hours, we began to get word that the Trump administration was evacuating non-essential personnel from U.S. embassies in places like Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Iraq, and others. Iran is saying if nuclear negotiations fail and conflict arises with the United States, Iran will strike American bases in the region, says their defense minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, on Wednesday. So this week alone, those of y'all that are out there going, well, I thought we were going to have more negotiations. Well, Iran is saying we're going to be striking you. Well, it's kind of hard to negotiate when that's going on. Although they do have the next round of talks actually still planned. We'll see if they show up. Interesting dynamic there is that Trump said, was it you told me this? That Trump said he doesn't think the same people are going to be showing up at the table for Iran?
Yeah, he put up a truth and said, well, we'll see if they've changed their tone since the hardliner negotiators will not be showing up to this round of negotiations. Did you see his quote this morning? Apparently, he told Dana Bash said, it was in response to his statement of that and said, so you're saying that Israel killed these people? And Trump said, well, they didn't die of COVID. So
that's funny, not funny, but yeah.
Oh, it's funny because it's the Iranians.
It's true.
So
a couple of text messages. Cameron from Decatur says, shout out to all the far right conservatives like myself who have a man bun. Sorry, Cameron. There you go. Lisa from Tanner says the Times of Israel reported about 3 hours ago that Israel has warned Iran that if it targets Israeli population centers with ballistic missiles, Israel will target Iranian regime leaders and state infrastructure such as oil refineries. Would not be a bit surprised. And then following that, Steve from Madison says, go buy your gas now. Gas prices are about to explode over this Middle East disruption. Remember, this is not President Trump's fault when you fill up. That's going to be true to some extent, but I think we're also seeing our own domestic production increased greatly. So I'm hoping there's going to be an offset here. And then, maybe we'll just find some alternative sourcing. Although I suspect what's going to happen, though, is you're going to see world oil supplies are going to change. It's not going to be just what we have now that I say that, because you're going to probably see some pretty stiff sanctions coming on here real quick. And Iranian oil is about all they have to export right now. You're not getting a whole lot of else, other things in the mix. So I'm not going to be a bit surprised to see that there's massive sanctions on Iranian oil, which drives the world oil supply down, which means we're going to hope that we can see Saudi and our own production come up, and that we see an offset to the loss of any Iranian oil. All right, listen, we are coming right back here momentarily. We got to switch gears altogether. Just brace yourselves, because you need something besides war. But we're going to have a little JP on sports. JP, give us an advance. What are there super interesting stories in sports right now?
Well, and I'll be talking about this in the 3 and Out, but the revenue sharing is now official in college football, college sports as a whole, but mainly college football. But then also, Simone Biles is decided to vouch for transgenders in women's sports last week, and then immediately got shut down by Riley Gaines, and then had to issue let me rephrase it. Simone Biles' PR firm issued an apology. That said a whole lot without saying anything at all.
That wasn't her. That was her PR firm doing it?
That's me insinuating that but yeah, so we'll be covering those in the JP on Sports.
Simone, stop it.
Well, I knew it was PR because she said a whole lot without saying anything at all, which is a typical PR statement.
Well played. Well played. All right, there you have it. War in the Middle East. We can take more on that as the show develops. But right now, we're going to take a break and come back with some JP on Sports. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all don't talk about this show goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I mean, from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, listen, we're going to take a break from the news. We're going to take a break from politics, take a break from war, and jump into a segment we do every Friday. Love doing this. So in case you don't already know, JP is a sports guru. In fact, one of our podcasts is Out of Right Field, which is JP doing conservative commentary with backdrop of sports. That being said, we also do a segment here every Friday called JP on Sports. And we have it in two segments. First segment is called The Three and Out. He gets to go with the top three stories he believes the sports world needs to be, talked about. And then we jump back, and the second round is with a buzzer and a timer. We call them the 2-minute warnings, and that's where he gets to run 2 minutes per topic on sports. He also has his very own sound effect, courtesy of sorority girls at Auburn. Go, man. All right, JP, 3 and out. You're up. Go.
So the U.S. Open is going on this weekend at the hardest course in the world. It is a bit touted, and rightfully so, of Oakmont Country Club. And the course has been kicking butt because the cut line right now is 7 over, which is insane. Cut line is only like at 1 or 2 over, and the winner right now is sitting at 5 under, which is Thriston Lawrence from South Africa. But like I said, it's been kicking butt because we got Scotty Scheffler, who is by far the best player in the world, currently sitting at 4 over. We've also got Rory McIlroy, the second best player in the world right now in terms of the FedEx Cup rankings. He's sitting at 7 over, and so the course is proven to be, extremely difficult. So pretty much whoever can survive and get through the bloodbath safely is going to be the one that's sitting at top right now. But yeah, I think it's just amazing to me that, just how hard the course is. If Scotty Scheffler sitting at 4 over, if anybody knows, Scotty Scheffler has been number one for, I don't even know, like at least a year. And if he's sitting at 4 over, I think that's a testament. The course is pretty dang hard. So, yeah. But we'll see. This is the first time they played at Oakmont since 2016. And yesterday, I believe it was JJ Spawn. JJ Spawn, who currently sits number 2 at 4 under. He was only the 8th player in history at a U.S. Open at Oakmont to have a bogey-free round. So just another statistic there to prove to the difficulty of the course.
Why has it been 10 years since they played there?
That's just that they have a cycle. They have a
rotation?
They have a rotation of courses in the U.S. that they go through. So it's just Oakmont's turn again. I think they won't be playing there again until like 2030 or so, which all the U.S. Open players will be taking a sigh of relief for that because this is how hard it is. But yeah, it's fascinating to me because this is when you play at such a hard course like this, it makes the best in the world look like me on a Saturday here at the local country club. So it makes me feel a little better. But then I know if I had to go play at Oakmont, I'd probably shoot like 200 or something. So
one of my favorite lines you told me is when your dad told you, you've not earned the right to throw your clubs yet.
If I get pissed and toss my clubs, not good enough to do that yet. So yeah, we'll see. There's been quite the frustration from some players. Scotty Scheffler even, spiked his club down after a drive there. So it's been fun to watch, to see a difficult course like that, and they've been trying to manage it. But yeah.
All right. So the U.S. Open, that's number 1. What's 2?
NBA Finals, the Pacers are now up 2-1 on the Thunder, to my great surprise. I kind of thought the Thunder would come in and blow through them personally. I think the Thunder are the best team in the league, but it's still pretty earlier on. But this is an important game tonight, game 4 in Indiana. I think if the Pacers can get up to a 3-1 lead, it's going to be pretty dang hard for the Thunder to do that. I mean, it's only happened once where in 2016, LeBron and the Cavs came back from a 3-1 lead. But other than that, it's never happened in the finals. So if the Pacers can steal tonight's game, I'd say it's pretty safe to say it's theirs. But don't count the Thunder out too. I mean, like I said, they're the best team in the league roster wise for a reason. But we'll see. Halliburton has showed up big time for the Pacers this year. It has been fun to see a small market team like the Pacers compete with. I mean, the Thunder are also a small market team themselves. But I don't think many people expected the Pacers to be in the spot they are right now in the finals and looking to be, if they win tonight, one game away from winning the finals completely. So yeah, it's been quite fun to watch the Pacers build up a team and get to the finals like this. So we'll see if they can finish the job.
All right, that's two. You got golf and basketball. What's next?
So this is a big story. I mentioned it earlier. Revenue sharing is now official in college sports, and this is a big topic, and it's a topic I think needs to be discussed because now you've pretty much got players deemed employees of the school. Because now you have, instead of, NIL before was collectives and, you get a bunch of rich or even not rich. I mean, anybody can donate to any collective of your choice, but it was like an outside kind of not related to the school sort of, deal. It's kind of its own thing and they pay the players to come. But now you got the schools directly paying out of their revenue for the year to players. And I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head. I have to look it up. The exact amount, like max that, colleges are able to give to players. But in a way, this is a kind of a good thing. So 20.5 million per school is allowed per revenue year to be given to athletes total.
And that's all sports.
That's all sports, yes. And obviously more of they're probably going to be given to football and basketball over. That's like those two are probably going to take the biggest chunk. But yeah, 20.5 million over all sports per revenue year. And it's very unfortunate we're at this stage. However, I think it had to be done in my view, a little bit. This all could have been prevented if the NCAA actually showed some true leadership and stopped NIL getting to the spot that it is. But now that we're in the spot that it is, and unfortunately pay for play is just where we're at. I think if schools can directly pay the players, then it's going to have a little bit more of a level playing field. Because with collectives, you have such an uneven playing field of some states collectives aren't even really allowed, I believe, until recently. But then you got, states like Texas where you got the old money people who are just extremely rich and could dump a lot more money into theirs than say, Nebraska or something. But if we're on a even playing field of each school has this max amount they can give to players, I think it'll make it fairer. However, like I said, I'm not happy with the fact that players are now kind of deemed employees of the schools because now we get a conversation about unions and, we start to unwind the nasty road there. I
gotta guarantee they're going to make them all like 1099 independent contractors.
I believe that's kind of what this does. Yeah. But like I said, it's unfortunate that this is where we're at, but I think something like this had to be done to make the playing field a bit more even. Cause it was just kind of the wild, wild west, before.
It's NIL is still the wild, wild west. But so let me ask you this because you got time, unless I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. So is this revenue sharing? Is this being put in place and it's going to wind up taking the place of NIL as they move away from NIL, or is NIL embedded and now they have two revenue streams for players?
Two revenue streams, for what I understand. I don't think NIL collectives are being outlawed completely, although I would kind of like to see that. But I would like to see collectives get done away, but it is kind of fun, if I'm an Alabama fan and I can go to the NIL collective store and buy a polo or something, and that money goes to help, recruit players. Like that stuff I think is cool. But like I said, it becomes an issue because of just the unfairness of it. Like Nebraska or I don't know, Iowa or anybody can't compete with Texas A&M with just the state of Texas alone has more money. So more money is going to be allowed to be driven from there. So I would hope that this is a step in the direction of collectives are just done away with and is strictly revenue sharing. We're kind of in a position of making a crappy situation a little bit less crappy. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be a perfect situation. But I would prefer, if we're going to have players being paid, it to come from the schools directly instead of collectives.
Yes. By the way, doesn't collective feel very communist in nature? It sounds like it.
It is a bit of a weird.
like you have been absorbed into the collective.
Yeah, it is a bit of a weird name there. But and hopefully this can also bring NIL back to what it was supposed to be. Of players that can make money if they do commercials or if they do, in the video games or whatever, if it's actually based off name, image, and likeness instead of PFP, pay for play, because that's the correct acronym it is right now of pay for play. But this is a big deal, I think. I mean, this is a new day in college sports because it's student athlete doesn't even feel like a fair term for them. It's like employee athletes, employee athletes of the school. But we'll see. We'll see moving forward. It's what this is going to bring. Because, like I said, I think the union conversation will be next.
And I wonder when they're going to wind up having to face some liability for slinging money at 18-year-olds who had no idea how to pay taxes or to handle their affairs, and they had bad family lives, so there was no support back home to advise them. And all of a sudden, you got kids that are in default to the IRS. When's that going to happen?
And the schools themselves, like I said, they're going to be responsible because they gave them the money and brought them in that situation.
And then you're going to wind up having the lawyers get involved. And the lawyers are going to say, we'll help set up trusts and we'll run the trust and then we'll get paid out of your trust. And next thing you know, everybody's at the trough.
Yeah, it's such a messy situation. I wish it could actually be name, image, and likeness. But I guess the cat's out of the bag at this point.
Here's an idea. Go back to the way it was. You play for the brand, the notoriety, the team. You get up there and you say, I used to play for a college ball.
Well, I do say it is fun playing the college football video game. So that wouldn't have been a thing in the past. So I'm happy with it for that sense.
All right. That's it. 3 and out. There's your top 3 stories. You got golf, basketball, and money. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More JP on sports. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we're back for round 2 of JP on Sports. This is the section or the round where it's got a buzzer and a timer, 2-minute warning, we call it. He's able to just run 2 minutes per story, whatever story he's got, sports related, buzzer and a timer. First one, go.
Well, the Stanley Cup has been living up to the hype. So let me tell you these stats from the first 4 games. So game 1, we had 7 goals scored and the game went into overtime. Game 2, we had 9 goals scored and it went into double overtime.
Wow.
Game 3, 7 goals scored. And then last night, game 4, we had 9 total goals scored, and it went into overtime with the Oilers coming out in overtime there against the Florida Panthers. So now
that's the way a championship series should go.
That is exactly how the the Stanley Cup championship series should go. You're correct. But now the series is tied at 2-2, and the Panthers will be going up to Edmonton now. They'll play Saturday night to see who can steal Game 5. But like I said, this is a big game. You're tied up 2-2. The next winner is 1 win away from winning it all. But I just can sense it. If the first 4 games have gone the way that they have, Game 7 is just going to come. It's going to come. There's going to be a Game 7. It's going to go all the way to 7. And what better, championship than Stanley Cup Game 7? So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, this series has definitely lived up to the hype, and it's a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup too. So that even adds on to the intrigue there for here in this rubber match. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to see how this goes.
All right, you came in way under the clock. Resetting and go.
So Simone Biles and Riley Gaines last week had a feud, a very short-lived feud, where Simone Biles called out Riley Gaines. And I did my podcast on this, by the way, if y'all go check it out. But Simone Biles called out Riley Gaines for calling out the Marissa Rothenberger, the Minnesota softball pitcher, quote, Marissa Rothenberger, who they won the state championship where he pitched 21 consecutive runless innings. And Simone Biles pretty much said that Riley Gaines was bullying and was not being very inclusive enough of the transgender community, and then proceeded to then body shame Riley Gaines and said that she looked like a man body-wise. So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, Simone Biles has been in ads campaigns that, against body shaming, but yeah, she went and body shamed Riley Gaines. But then you have a star athlete, the greatest gymnast of all time, of Simone Biles, who has a unique platform to call this stuff out. And she has a unique voice to speak up for women athletes. But yet she is choosing the side of men in women's sports and deciding that, you shouldn't bully them. But it is fair for the men to bully girl athletes and go invade their sport. But also, the predatory aspect of it. She's putting up girls in vulnerable positions to where dudes can come into their locker rooms. And Simone Biles, it's unfortunate, but she suffered, the Larry Nassar stuff. She should know firsthand. Like, she of all people should understand, the importance of protecting girls in sports. So it was very unfortunate. But then, like I said, Simone Biles' PR firm, PR team put out a very big, long apology. She apologized for body shaming Riley Gaines, but then pretty much kind of doubled down on what she was saying about fairness in sports. So it's unfortunate, but I was encouraged by the response and the support Riley Gaines got in support of that. People calling out and mocking Simone Biles.
And there it is. Buzzer and a timer. All right, reset the clock. You got 2 minutes. Ready? Go.
College World Series. We're now on to Omaha, where we got the last 8 teams. Omaha. We got 8 teams left. So we got Coastal Carolina playing up against Arizona, and then we also got UCLA, Murray State, Oregon State, and Louisville. But then we got, in my opinion, the best matchup of the weekend, not because they're SEC teams, but that maybe is part of it. Arkansas versus LSU. I think Arkansas versus LSU. Coastal Carolina, I would say, is kind of at the same tier of those teams, but Arkansas LSU, I think, is really the best matchup to start in Omaha. And it's unfortunate that they're matching up against each other this early, because I think both of those teams deserve to make it a lot further than the first round, but unfortunately only one's going to be able to. But Arkansas came up against, or is coming after, a big series win against Tennessee, where Tennessee, Arkansas too. I think that right there could have been an Omaha matchup in and of its own. But Arkansas, their pitching staff is just way too powerful, and Tennessee was not able to repeat as champions. But right there, I think the winner of that series will probably play Coastal Carolina in the national championship. That is what I'm predicting. Coastal Carolina came off of a series win against Auburn too, which it's unfortunate for Auburn because they had to play a great team early as well. But like I said, I think Arkansas LSU, that winner is going to go on to the championship, and we'll face Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina looking to get its first championship since 2016, and we're looking to have yet another SEC national champion, which I'm rooting for because I like to see SEC dominate all sports.
But there is the whole thing about I'd like for Coastal Carolina to win because then Auburn can say they lost to the national champion.
There's that too. And Coastal Carolina is kind of a fun team to root for. The Chanticleers.
What is a Chanticleer?
It's some sort of chicken, a bird hybrid. I don't know. You got to be unique. You can't call yourself the Coastal Carolina Chickens. You got the Chanticleers.
Why don't you call yourself the Coastal Carolina Pirates or the Buccaneers?
I don't know.
You're on the coast.
The Chanticleers, and then they got that teal color, so they're pretty unique.
And there's the buzzer. You still got time. Let's reset the clock. You got a little bit of overtime in you. Come on. Get it.
So we got a text, and actually Tom from Decatur asked a pretty good question I'd like to talk about. He said, "Hey JP, will this feud between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark ruin all the gains of fans of WNBA's experience last year? Was Clark's injury blatant? My granddaughter's a huge fan of Clark and doesn't understand why she's being treated like this." Well, I don't understand why Caitlin Clark is being treated like this either. She's not really being welcomed into the WNBA like she should. And right now she does have an injury, so she's not playing. And I'm trying to find this. I believe the correct stat is that the WNBA ratings have dropped. Yeah. Over 50% since Caitlin Clark has been injured.
Over 50%.
The WNBA ratings have plummeted over 50% since Caitlin Clark's been injured. So I think that stat alone proves how much eyeballs Caitlin Clark is bringing into the league. But of course, it's being turned into a race battle between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And yeah, I agree. I don't think the injury was blatant. I think she just kind of tweaked it. But she has been getting body checked like crazy by people in the WNBA.
It's ridiculous.
It's pretty crazy. But no, I actually think the WNBA's feud between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark could help it if the WNBA embraces it in the right way. Don't make it a race battle. Don't say, "Oh, well, Caitlin Clark's why Angel Reese is about." Like, it doesn't have to be a race thing. Just make it what it is. It's a great rivalry, and that rivalry is going to bring more eyes to your sport. So I would say welcome the rivalry, embrace the rivalry, but then also embrace Caitlin Clark because, like I said, over 50% of people stopped watching when she got hurt. That is an insane number. Like, that's over half of your viewership.
Did you say how long is she going to be out? Do we know?
I believe she's coming back this week. So she'll be back. But she's been out for about 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, for too much longer, the WNBA is going to have to pay minimum wage.
Yeah.
Because Caitlin Clark's out.
They play slightly over that right now.
All right. Good job, man. There it is. That's JP on sports. Coming up next, our friend Stephanie Smith from the Alabama Policy Institute checking in. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday. It's a Friday, y'all, and we're getting you all the way to go home time and out of here for the weekend. Father's Day weekend too, by the way. JP, don't forget Father's Day weekend. So,
I know. I'm going up to Huntsville and partaking in the protest, or not partaking, but watching the protest while I'm up there.
Say it's not so. All right, we'll get pictures.
Yeah.
In fact, get video. How about that?
I'm actually not going to the protest. I value my life, and so yeah.
Fair enough. I think it's going to be a fizzle. Hey, listen, we're going to switch gears a little bit. So we've talked a while here about Israel and Iran. We had our moment of JP on sports. And now we're going to switch to, I'm going to go ahead and call it audible. We're moving straight to home fries. So, yeah, you may recall that I've said multiple times that what happens in your own backyard, what happens in and around and amongst us right here in our own state capital or in and around, the different venues in our state can sometimes impact your life way more than what happens in DC or in some international tribunal. So all I'm saying is every once in a while, we got to cook up a batch of home fries. Yeah, cook them up. All right, and to help us out with that right now, I'm bringing on somebody who cooks up a lot of home fries. That'd be our friend Stephanie Smith, president of the Alabama Policy Institute. Stephanie Smith, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Phil.
Well, thank you for being on. Hey, before we cook up the home fries, though, I got to ask you, any thoughts on this wave of news we're seeing right now out of Iran and Israel? Obviously, it's not something the Alabama Policy Institute deals with per se, but it still feels like it means something.
No, it feels significant, and it's one of those moments, and I've got a bunch of kids. I came across Twitter after dinner or whatever time that was, around dinner time yesterday, and I made the announcement to the room. You know what I mean? It feels like one of those moments that might be defining. And it's one of those things too, this is literally a biblically old situation, and it's difficult to extract yourself, put the politics into it without taking your spiritual life out of it, and vice versa. And so, it feels like one of those moments that we may look back on as a pivotal moment in history for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I also think that it's a very defining moment here in the new Trump administration. I mean, this is foreign policy taking a dramatic shift, because I think if this had been the continuation of the Biden era, we would have seen more appeasement, more palace of cash, more meaningless red lines. So yeah, it's a whole new day.
Well, and I will say this too, and I think we've talked about this. I know we have offline. I can't remember if we have online, but I was pretty surprised, and I'm not usually naive. I was pretty surprised by the pro-Palestinian unrest, even in the state of Alabama, in the last year or two. And, I think that we can probably expect, whatever this King situation that, is the current protest of the day will, I think, probably shift into some more of that, Israeli versus Palestine protesting. That's my prediction, just because I think it's just going to come right back around. And that's frankly, in my estimation, distasteful. Both of them are, because one's anti-American, in my opinion, and one is anti-Israeli. And I just think that it's an interesting thing, because those two protest groups seem to be fully aligned.
Oh, they're fully aligned. They're probably fully funded by the same people too.
I imagine so. Yeah. This is what we call AstroTurf, not grassroots.
Excellent. The No Kings protests, which are allegedly going to be popping up around the nation. In some places they already have been. I think they had like a couple of dozen people in Nashville today.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But No Kings, if they go down that road and they start waving Palestinian flags and they move from being, no to Trump, but yes to Palestine, it's gonna co-opt the whole moment for them, and they're gonna lose everything they're trying. But I'm fine. Go ahead. Give us more audio that we can use for the campaign ads coming up in the next cycle.
That's right.
I'm all for it.
That's right. And then also this, the rash of anti-Semitism that's just been really disgusting, frankly. And it's cropped up more places than I anticipated, and much more violent. That situation in DC was absolutely just abhorrent.
That's horrible.
And so, if it morphs into that, I can see kind of, the lines being even further drawn a little deeper in the sand. It feels like us versus them a little bit.
Well, let's talk about state stuff for a minute.
Sure.
So, I have basically a rumored conversation that there is a lot of policy making and planning going into a future potential Tuberville, gubernatorial office holding. What am I trying to say? He's going to be governor. He's sweeping things. I got so lost in my words, but anyway, but the reality is right now, unless, something really drastic changes, we're looking at, Governor Tommy Tuberville here in a couple of years. And I'm hearing that the Alabama Policy Institute might be able to assist with developing policy, because you guys have already been on this. It's what you do. I was there with you or there before you, but I was on staff, and I know that policy is why you exist. What would you imagine? Like, what would a list like that look like if you said, "Hey, coach, here's a battle plan, do these things"? What would be on that dream sheet?
Yeah, we started doing the blueprint for Alabama a couple of years ago, building off of what Gary and you and some others had done to make this 30-point plan on an annual basis. But now we have a new project, and our new project is, not only what we think ought to be done next year, but what ought to be done next quadrennium. And so we're doing the blueprint for 2026. We already have our list, and we're working on the issues. And now we're setting a plan that is somewhat aspirational, because you put things on, it's like what we were talking about with the bucket list. You put things on your list that are slightly unattainable so that you reach for things instead of just having, kind of the same old ideas regurgitated. But I think that there's a real opportunity in the state, because we have all the statewide elected. So many are term limited. There's a fruit basket turnover. We have the possibility of Coach Tuberville coming in from a U.S. Senate seat, which is fairly uncommon, as you know. It's in Alabama, but also nationwide. And then you have the Trump presidency in the midst of all of this. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities to do some things that you and I have been talking about for a really long time.
Yep.
And then there are also the possibilities of bringing in the concepts of, making America healthy again, make Alabama healthy again, and the Doge project. There are a lot of things that you and I talk about a lot, like occupational licensing reform, certificate of need reform, and the REINS Act, which we were emailing each other about the other day, budgetary reform, tax cuts. It is a possibility to hit that reset button in Montgomery. And we are certainly not going to waste it. We'll have more ideas than he will be able to choose. He'll have to choose from our large number of ideas. It's one of those things, it's an opportunity for us to really create a plan that we think is the best plan for the state of Alabama. And then also, like I said, tied to those national issues that are just catching fire and catching the attention of the American people, and bringing those things to Alabama. I love Alabama. I know you do too. We live here on purpose. We could live other places. We live here on purpose, and we want, I personally want my kids and my grandkids to live here. And so there are there's some low-hanging fruit, but there are also some very difficult issues on the healthcare side. We've got some really difficult issues with maternity outcomes, and then on the education side, there's plenty of work to be done in that K-12 system.
It's a never-ending stream, yeah.
Yes, and then also, he's been on record saying that he's for universal school choice, which of course is music to our ears, and he's also really interested, I think, in restructuring the state, restructuring our tax system to make it more business friendly, which is also music to our ears, because we've gotten into this rut, in my opinion, over the last, especially 10 years or so, which is our budgets have been in surplus since 2016. We spend all we have plus some every single year.
Yep.
We give pay raises. There's not a lot of attention on the budgets. There's not a lot of transparency with the budgets. And, the taxing and spending with the Republican supermajority legislature is more than frustrating for somebody like us at API.
Yes, it is. I'll tell you what, can you hang on during a break and come right back and finish this conversation a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
All right, good. So when we come back, I want to talk about what it might be like for a governor in Alabama to actually be vocal and be leading on the issue and see whether the legislature will follow. We're with Stephanie Smith from the Alabama Policy Institute. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, going back to the phones right now with Stephanie Smith, president of the Alabama Policy Institute. Steph, let me ask you, me personally, I feel like it's been quite a while since Alabama had what I would call a vocal and energetic governor. It feels like a long time, which, there's something to be said for that. I don't necessarily want like somebody who's grandstanding all the time, but my gosh, you want somebody who's leading and who's, look what Ron DeSantis has been able to do. And at times he was doing like Trump does in DC, pulling the legislature along. Other times he was joining forces with them, setting an agenda.
Right.
All right. What do you think assuming that Tuberville is the heir apparent, is Tuberville, is he going to be that much more energetic, do you think? And will the leadership from the chief executive, will the legislature join him in it?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you're old guard, I'm old guard. I think that we remember kind of a different dynamic in Montgomery than what's occurred over the last decade or so. And, having a governor with an agenda and a plan, and having a governor that is not scared to tell the truth and also not scared to use the bully pulpit in the legislative process is going to be something that the vast majority of our state legislature has never experienced before.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that came in with you are no longer there.
Right.
And then the ones that, have been around as long as I've been around, there are just a few of them. There's Steve Klaus, there's Jim Carnes, there's Jabbo, there's a handful. And so it will be interesting to see not only how the legislators, especially the legislative leadership, reacts when there's disagreement, but also it will be very interesting to see how the lobbying class tries to handle that situation, because they are also not used to having to go across the street. They're not used to having to, do a lot of the preparation work that's a little more broad through the agencies, through the you always go through the legislative director or the political director of the governor and the chief of staff, et cetera. But to have an activist governor that is trying to make their own way and bring the legislature along with them is something that, like I said, I don't think that a lot of, unless you've been there 3 quadrenniums, that hasn't been your personal experience.
No, not at all. And, you worked for Governor Riley, am I correct? Did I say that?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, you worked in the right. And I've said several times that Governor Riley is the last one we've had in office who was what I would call kind of gamey. He was willing to mix it up. He would call people out. He would have a plan.
Right.
And
he wasn't scared to have a press conference.
Yeah.
and lay it out.
The way things were going, he would call it.
That's right. And I think that will be more of the model if Coach Tuberville is in that office. I think that's what he's become accustomed to because he's been in this divisive, kind of uphill battle. Even with Trump in the White House, Congress is an uphill battle, right? So, and he's been in this uphill battle legislatively. So I think that will actually come really naturally to him, that he will immediately understand that not everybody in the Republican supermajority legislature, thinks exactly the way he does. And my guess is that, I don't think he'll be a tyrant by any means, but I think that he will be, strong. And I think that he will also expect for people to come along with a lot of the ideas that he brings to the table.
Yeah. And I think he will also expect that if they ran a campaign commercial in which they touted themselves as a conservative, that he may actually point that out to them and say, oh, by the way, here's what you said about yourself, and here's the bill I've got. Why would you not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think he's a coach. He keeps score just like we do at API. So, there's not going to be a time, I don't think, when he just, lets things go or lets things languish.
So you're saying he'll make him take a lap. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, and he's a pretty direct guy, I think he's a direct person. I think he wants people to be honest with him, and I think in turn he tries to be honest with people. So, yeah, I think that he'll come in with that expectation, And it remains to be seen, especially how the legislative leadership will react to that, because they've been running their own show for a while.
Well, they have. Now Garland Gudger is still fairly fresh in the job still. I mean, he got one session to get his feet
wet.
Session. I look forward to seeing whether he can do more. But of course, Nathaniel Ledbetter's now been there for a couple of quadrenniums at least. No, one quadrennium.
Just one.
Yeah, just one. But still, 4 years.
But 3, yeah. He's working on his 4th year.
Well, we'll see, but I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be far more dynamic, and I look forward to actually having somebody who speaks up with a bit more energy, like I said earlier. So, well, hey, Stephanie Smith, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the work that y'all do. If folks want to figure out more about the Alabama Policy Institute, where can they find you?
You can find us on all social media under Alabama Policy, and then our website is alabamapolicy.org.
All right. Thank you, my friend. You have a great weekend.
Absolutely. You too, Phil. Happy Father's Day.
Oh, thank you. All right. We're about to take a break here. We got about 1 minute, but I will just point out that the Alabama Policy Institute, I actually worked there. When I left the legislature in 2018, I went on staff there and was dual-hatted, kind of like I'm dual-hatted now, practicing law, also working with the Policy Institute on good government, if you will, policy issues, conservative policy agendas, and advocating for things that we would all want to see happen in Montgomery. If you want to do a deep dive, if you're like, hey, what about that bill? Hey, why don't they do this thing? Hey, what's she talking about when she said this piece about, like, I don't know, occupational licensure or whatever? There's so many amazing things on their website. I would really encourage you when I was a state senator, I literally used their stuff to help me argue my bills or to argue against bad bills. They would post research online. So if you're one of those who like, man, I want to get more details, I want some stuff on it, I want the history, well, you go to alabamapolicy.org. I guarantee you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff. And they're also, by the way, a great organization. You might even want to get involved. All right, listen, we're taking a break. We're coming right back. Last half hour on a Friday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. out there. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. I mean, it goes like from all the way from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains that we call Auburn, straight across the border to what we now get to call once again Fort Benning. Benning! And then big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Yes, indeedy. And by the way, that's just the radio audience. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world, going to the World Wide Web, picking us up on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and oh, by the way, on our website, rightsidemedia.org. Thank you very much. We love y'all. Appreciate you very much, more than you could possibly imagine. Speaking of our website, let me say this real quick. Latest edition of the Right Click podcast came out. So if we got something for everybody. So imagine this, if you will. Rightside Media, that's the parent company. Rightside Radio that you're on right now is just like one of our productions. But we have multiple podcasts. And the whole goal here is to find something that fits everybody's wheelhouse. So we have multiple podcasts. We've got, if you like for instance, sports, JP does Out of Right Field, which is a podcast that comes out every Monday. And he'll talk from a sports background, conservative content. And then you've got Right Click, which came out today. Right Click is based on the genre of gaming and high-tech stuff. And that's going to wind up being Birdman, who is a gamer and a high-tech dude. And he's going to wind up having all kinds of conservative content with that as a framework. You've got Controversial Mom with Emily Jones. She's great. She started Moms for Liberty. And so that's just very cool as she addresses topics of the day and sometimes just flat out what it's like being a mom in the middle of all this. And then you got mine. I come out. If you like my monologue at the beginning of each show, well, every single day, or excuse me, every single week, we've got one called The Right Philosophy. The Right Philosophy comes out. And that's me sitting in my study at home, giving you my thoughts on key current topics of the day. All right, did I cover them all? Oh, what am I saying? The Just Right podcast. Just Right podcast is our new long-form podcast. I feel like I'm talking all day about this, but the reality is it's very important. The Just Right podcast, if you like long-form, these are deep dive discussions with some of the most interesting people in the world. And our latest one, we just filmed it this morning. High quality, very good content. Today, we just did one with Mike Durant talking about his time. You just put the picture up. Cool. We're talking about his time being held captive in the Battle of Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down. But even more than that, we talked about his life. We talked about his goals. We talked about his aspirations. We talked about his motivations. So it was really a great time. I can't wait for it to come out next week. Okay. All of that is available on our website, rightsidemedia.org. We love you. Check it out. Thank you very much. I did not mean to go that long, but I just did. That's how much we do, though.
Yeah, we do a lot.
We do a lot. You do a lot. Barry from Huntsville says, Bama AD is begging for dollars from fans. That's $25 a month. And he sends us a link to, what is that? What's the link to?
Who's the texter? Barry, let me see.
Yeah, it's from Essentially Sports. Oh, it's a headline. Essentially Sports has a picture of the Bama flag. It says, suffering a $28 million loss. Alabama AD turns to Nick Saban. And now I got a pop-up ad right smack in the middle of my picture, and I can't even see what it is. Anyway, they're saying they need more money. For NIL, I guess.
Okay.
It's their article. He didn't make it up. Barry from Huntsville.
I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll see.
It's their article. He didn't make it up. Tom from Decatur says, hey, JP, will the feud between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark ruin all the gains of the fans, or all the gains of fans the WNBA experienced last year? And by the way, was Clark's injury blatant? My granddaughter's a huge fan of Clark and does not understand why she's being treated like this. Tom from Decatur, what do you think?
We talked about that one, JP on Sports. Yeah, it's not a bad thing if the WNBA embraces the rivalry, but they need to be accepting too of
It's hard. Clark. Yeah, but say it's hard to embrace a rivalry that is based on hate.
Well, that's one. Yeah,
it's not competitive.
If they embrace it the correct manner, but everything's a race issue apparently with WNBA commentators. So that's the problem where it lies. But like, if I don't know, I mean, it's different because the Magic and Larry Bird rivalry was in a time where race division was an actual thing. So like, it's very fair for that to be, but it's 2025. Like it doesn't have to be a race issue. It could just be two players going at it, and that's it. But it obviously has to be more.
But maybe I didn't follow it, but was Magic in Larry Bird, was it purely based on race, or was it two very competitive people who just when they got on the court together is like game on?
Well, no, it inherently wasn't like a race. It wasn't being driven as that, if that makes sense. But it was just inherently during a time where race issues were very prominent. So the fans, it had that effect. But no, it wasn't inherently propped up as that. It appears this Angel Reese one, it's in an area. I mean, the WNBA is probably the liberal hotbed of sports, so obviously they're going to have to make everything a race issue, but it doesn't have to be.
All right. Michael from Madison says, I keep wondering why the word Chanticleer was picking at my brain so much, and then I realized it's the name of the rooster in the early 90s Don Bluth movie Rockadoodle. So is a Chanticleer like a fighting gamecock kind of thing?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
A Chanticleer.
It is a Chanticleer is a rooster. Yeah. So yes, it is.
It's a fighting gamecock.
Proud and boastful gamecock.
Why don't they just call them gamecocks like JSU?
Because then they wouldn't be fun. Chanticleer is a fun name.
Chanticleer. I mean, I just feel fairly limp-wristed. I'm just saying. just kind of light in the loafers.
You gotta be unique. There's already the Gamecocks, South Carolina. You gotta be unique.
All I know is they'd better win, because otherwise they're gonna get mocked for their name. Roxanne, what?
I was gonna say, we have a YouTube comment here. Tammy says, "So grateful for Phil and his team bringing us real news, the backstories that no one else will tell on TV. Thank you and God bless you."
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Who was that again?
Tammy on YouTube.
Tammy, thank you, Tammy. Roxanne from Harvest says, happy birthday, U.S. Army. Yes, indeed. And all the dads have a great Father's Day weekend. Yes, indeed. I love the fact that Father's Day and the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army are both the same weekend. By the way, I'll be on tomorrow. I'll be on Newsmax and News Nation doing interviews throughout the day related to the 250th birthday. I would not be a bit surprised to find out they want to talk about Israel and Iran too. But yeah, I'm looking forward to making some appearances tomorrow. Kim from Danville, Alabama says, concerning the protests scheduled for tomorrow around North Alabama, I hope the rain dampens their mood. As for me and my family, says, we'll be home watching our military parade on the TV with American pride. There you have it. Bam. Joe from Athens says, hey, Phil, why don't we Rightside Ruffians hold a protest? We can wear our Rightside t-shirts, wave our American and Israeli flags, and hold up signs that say, love it or leave it. We may be onto something here. By the way, if you want a Rightside Ruffian t-shirts, we got them. Just take a look at our website, rightsidemedia.org. You know what, JP? I'm going to go ahead and say we're giving away some t-shirts next week. It's too late now, today, but next week we're giving away some t-shirts.
Maybe a promo code thrown in there?
Maybe something to make it easier, but I'm saying giveaway. We're going to give away some t-shirts. Like we're going to outfit some people for free.
There you go. I'm for it.
Just ruffians.
Maybe have like a little texting contest. Winner gets a free t-shirt.
Make the plan.
Let's do it.
Fritzy from Huntsville says, happy Father's Day, y'all. Be careful this weekend. Enjoy the family. Indeed. You too, sir. David at Bucky says, Phil, Coastal Carolina beat Arizona 7-4 today. Well, did you know that?
I think it just happened, just finished. So,
okay.
You did not get your wish.
So the Chanticleers. All right. We're about to take a break, but I got to tell you, so the lovely Charlene just sent me something. There was a straw poll. College Republican Federation of Alabama announces the first straw. Now, straw polls, big fat grain of salt, straw poll. It's a little different. But right now, the College Federation of Alabama has done a straw poll announcing that, here they are, for governor, U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville comes in at 77.9%. That's called a dominating position, sort of a Chanticleer, if you will. Lieutenant Governor right now, Secretary of State Wes Allen is at top at 59%. Nicole Wadsworth actually got 6. Just Leave that right there.
I don't even think she's running anymore.
I'm pretty sure she's already out of the race. For U.S. Senate, who do you think, man, on the College Republican Federation?
Well, I saw the polls just a little bit.
Oh, did you really?
But yeah, I think wasn't Steve Marshall at about 57% or something like that?
It was Steve Marshall at 54%.
Jared at 8 or so.
Yeah, and Barry Moore are actually in between them, but Barry Moore is not even officially announced, although it's widely believed that he will in the very near future. So Congressman Barry Moore came in at 16%, Jared Hudson at 8.9%. Interesting. And I see, by the way, that John Wall was polled in 2 races. Yeah. Chairman John Wall. All right, Attorney General. Who do you think?
Oh, it was
it was a district attorney, Pamela Casey.
Was it?
Here's what happens to these straw polls. Sometimes that kind of makes sense. But what you're also looking at is, like, for instance, and I don't know if that happened or not. I'm just saying. I've been to straw polls where this kind of thing happened. District Attorney Pamela Casey, 57.9%. But I guarantee you she has no statewide name ID. So what very likely happened was she went to the event, she worked the room, and when they did the straw poll right there in the room, people were like, well, I shook her hand a little while ago. I'll vote for her.
Yeah.
It's not really going to wind up being scientific, because I'll tell you right now, you've got some strong candidates for AG. I'm not saying Pamela Casey's not a good candidate, but you've got a former Justice of the Supreme Court, Jay Mitchell. You've got Catherine Robertson, who's the chief advisor to the current AG. And then you got Caroline Dobson. So just saying.
I got a question. When was the last time we had like debates for these elections? Like we got, a bunch of the senators go up and have a debate, or I would say governor if there's actually a race. But I'd like to see that this time around, like actual debates.
You have 2 versions here. You have actual debates, then you have forums. And forums are where each one comes up and it gets their time, but it winds up getting kind of dicey sometimes. The thing to do is to choose whether you want to go first or not, because if you go first, you set the stage. But if you don't go first, you can sort of respond. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Forums happen a lot, and sometimes candidates get there and realize, oh shoot, my competition is here. I didn't think they were coming. But a debate is where it's formal, and I can tell you right now, there's already some debates being formed, and I've agreed to be the moderator for one of them as of yesterday. Had I told you that yet? By the way, I'm going to be the moderator for one of them.
You're not
as of
yesterday.
That.
I don't know. I'd like to see, instead of the election, just be like, oh, I've heard of that guy before. I'll vote, and actually have a debate to actually know what you're voting for.
But you know what happens? You saw it with Kay Ivey. If you're ahead in the polls and you don't have to debate, then the do no harm mode kicks in, and your advisors are like, stay off the stage. You don't want to be up there mixing it up. You're winning right now. Why? And then all the others are the ones doing the debates, and you're out there doing commercials that say things like, I'm a high stepper. Just no step too high for a high stepper, y'all.
I still can't believe that was her only campaign ad. It's like, ain't too high. It's step too high for a high stepper. And it worked.
Apparently it was very effective. I struggle to know why. All right, take me to the break, JP. We're taking the break. Last break of the day. Coming right back. We'll close it out. Going home on a Friday, Father's Day. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. John's got the grades in. John says JP gets an A- for just okay performance. Wow. And by the way, JP says, I believe Phil Mickelson's going to win his first ever U.S. Open. There's that.
I think Phil Mickelson maybe shot like 10 over, John. So it's, yeah.
Stephanie Smith gets an A+ for her amazing performance, which means today's winner with a perfect A++ is obviously the spectacular Phil Williams. Wow, I'm spectacular today. I'm digging it. Thank you much. Congratulations. Happy Father's Day. Happy Flag Day. Happy Donald Trump Parade Day. And happy 250th birthday to the U.S. Army. John, what a wonderful text. Thank you so much, man. We're thankful for you. And so I got to touch on something before we get down to the end of the show. How much time I got? About 5 minutes?
4.5.
4.5. I want to encourage y'all to be praying for the Israel-Iran situation. I definitely want to see peace. I definitely want to see this be something that is creates resolve and creates a resolution, as opposed to creates an escalation that just keeps going. I think that we're watching Iran get emasculated. I think we're watching Iran losing even its own people. Where there's a lot of talk about the man on the street in Iran, ready to just be done with the Ayatollahs, and I believe that's true. I mean, they live under oppression. They live under a regime where you can be beaten in the street for women wearing the wrong thing, or it's amazing. And with that being said, I also am firmly in the camp of Israel anyway. That's our friend. That's our ally. The state of Alabama was actually the very first state in the very first nation to recognize Israel as a sovereign nation back when they first formed. I will also tell you too that I have a personal angst with Iran. I'm not looking for a war with Iran. I don't want to go to war with Iran. I have no desire to see U.S. troops fighting with Iran. But I will tell you right now, I have no sympathy for Iran, and that's just where it's going to stay. I have no sympathy for them whatsoever. And it's not just because of what I've seen in the news. It's because of what I experienced in 2004. Because in Baghdad in 2004, when the Mahdi militia, which was, fomented by Muqtada al-Sadr, who was the guy who was the Shia, like cleric, allegedly, rabble rouser, militia leader in the really, really awful section of Baghdad called Sadr City that my battalion had a piece of. The Mahdi militia rose up and created mayhem and created a lot of death and destruction to U.S. troops and to Iraqis. And they were funded and fomented by Iran. And Iran, oh, by the way, not only trained, equipped, and then, like I said, fomented the Mahdi militia, but Iran also developed new techniques and then tried them out on us. And we lost U.S. troops to things like, they call them EFPs, explosive force projectiles. Picture an IED, a roadside bomb, but it's like a cannon buried in the ground. And when you trigger it, it blasts a copper projectile like a sabot round straight through the side of an armored vehicle. There was no way to get around the damage it was doing. And it was killing people a lot, killing American troops. Iranians were doing that. So yeah, they've been not only bad actors, they've been bad actors in terms of killing American troops, training the people who killed American troops. And I got no sympathy for them whatsoever. That being said, I also have a really strong faith-based and reality-based. So I'm praying for Israel in this, and I'm praying protection over them. And I would ask that y'all do the same, because this is not something that is just over there. This is something that winds up impacting us, because if it spills over, if it doesn't get contained, if it doesn't end sometime soon, it winds up having an impact on us, on international relations, on the region, and then the region winds up spilling over. But yeah, these Iranians, they start killing U.S. soldiers, it changes the whole dynamic. And they have over time killed a lot of them. And they've gotten away with it for far too long. Let's hope, though, that we can see this thing degrade them into a position where the people of Iran do like they did when they first put the Ayatollahs in by having a people's uprising throughout the Shah. I think it's time to flip the script. Maybe it's time for the people of Iran to throw out the Ayatollahs and rise up and take back their country and, maybe take back their freedom while they're at it. All right, you guys have an amazing weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow is the parade. I'll be on News Nation, News Max. Hope to see some of y'all there, and we'll put it on social media so you can catch it later. At the same time, I would also ask you to remember that this is Father's Day.